Welcome to the My Rules Are Better podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today I have the pleasure of talking with... Now, what am I allowed to call you in the podcast? Can I refer to you as Nergling? Can I refer to you as your government name?
No, Nergling is fine, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, let's call you Nergling. I will avoid calling you Alex going forward. I wanted to start with a slightly spicy political question, because obviously the times are changing. What is your view with regards to Warhammer the Old World?
Yeah, that is a bit spicy, isn't it? I'll tell you what. I think it's great for the old crowd because it's bringing in a lot of people to Oldhammer, or it's bringing a lot of people to Oldhammer, and especially now that we've got Age of Sigmar and what have you, I think that it's going to be something that's really going to benefit the old Hammer community. A lot of fresh blood for the hobby. However, that being said, there's going to be quite a lot more competition for older models. So I would envisage probably a bit of a price spike in...
Do you think that's already started? Because I'm shocked by the cost of models these days. I mean, it appears something has happened in the past 6 months, and I'm certainly blaming Warhammer Old World, but something has happened in the past 6 months, right? It's now just absolutely... Well, maybe it's just the US. Maybe I'm in a little bubble, and those of you that are closer to Nottingham might get better access to better miniatures. But have you seen something happen in the past 6 months too?
Maybe not the last 6 months. I mean, I've been in the hobby for about 30 years now,
Certainly.
and I've seen prices just steadily go up over time. Certainly, access to older models is getting harder, especially the sort of the classic Citadel miniatures, and that's probably why I'm such a strong proponent of proxy models and alternative manufacturers,
certainly,
who are still making models in pewter or white metal, and some even in lead. And that's the part of the hobby that I really enjoy, is finding something different and unique, and not necessarily passing it off as Citadel, but using it alongside Citadel.
Without question. So what is the origin story? Let's take it back prior to Nergling. What's your origin story in terms of Warhammer, in terms of wargaming? Where did you start?
Oh, crikey. So I was 8 years old, and it was my birthday. My uncle Martin bought me the fantastic game Battle Masters.
Ooh.
And it was absolutely amazing. I absolutely was blown away by the miniatures, the setup, the little bits of scenery, all the little cards that you got and everything. And it was something that I'd never considered collecting or playing before, but I absolutely fell in love with it. It was really something else. And from there, I then sort of got into not necessarily Games Workshop specifically, but I discovered Hero Quest and Space Crusade and the likes in local charity stores. And that is another part of the hobby that I feel has probably died a death now. I think that a lot of the charity stores are either wise to the ways of the internet, and they put things online for a lot more than perhaps they would have gone for in the past, or there's a group of people going around just snapping up all the miniatures and the rule books and what have you, and selling them on for a profit. Either way, it's certainly a part of the hobby that I find that we've lost, which is a bit of a shame.
Certainly. I mean, in my adult life, I've only had one experience finding a hobby store in a coastal town here in the US, going inside and realizing, hold up, no one like me has actually been here before. So that experience, I think, even in my adult life, I've never really had, because everywhere I've lived has always been populated by people that are still interested in the same stuff. But in terms of Warhammer specifically, how did you get interested in... Well, let's talk about Realm of Chaos. Let's talk about these books that basically are obviously part of your origin too. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in my opinion, and probably quite a few others, Realm of Chaos is without a doubt the pinnacle of sort of Games Workshop's creativity.
Certainly.
It's something that hasn't really been replicated over the years.
Yes.
And I've talked to people like Tony Ackland and John Blanche about this at Bring Out Your Lead, in that these books, they didn't necessarily have sort of an overarching aim. They were almost a conglomeration of, half a dozen or a dozen people
certainly
was creativity and output over the course of many months. And I think because of that sort of almost chaotic nature of the design and the creation of the books,
Certainly.
it almost comes through in the actual material itself, which I think is fascinating.
Without question. I mean, the line art alone, I show it to non-gaming people as a way of explaining to them. I mean, there are half a dozen books like that in a kind of broader context, some of the old TSRs and things like this, just with regards to the quality of the art. But it is, as you say, I mean, I spent a little bit of time at Jackson Livingston, really to try and get some insight of how they built the company that made the Realm of Chaos books, because I think it is a period of creative freedom which I don't think Games Workshop has ever had again. It's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Do you think it could be partly the political freedom as well as the creative freedom?
Oh, I think it's all intertwined.
It's all intertwined. So perhaps it was a symptom of the time, and perhaps because we didn't have something as accessible as the internet, these people gathered together and created something that didn't necessarily have to be put past a committee or a group think bias or anything like that. It was something that they came up with and just sort of ran with, I think.
Yes. I mean, the grotesque nature of some of the artwork, I certainly found this with Jackson Livingston through the discussion of Fighting Fantasy, the majority of the images that they were able just to cultivate for the Fighting Fantasy books would probably never be allowed to be published today. They're just too gruesome or, they're just outside the realm of thinking, which is one of the real joys I have with the Realm of Chaos books, that you get to see a part of the human imagination that you don't normally have access to with contemporary art and contemporary, similar stuff just can't get quite as bizarre and grotesque as the Realm of Chaos books are.
I think there's something to be said for that, especially with the old Hammer artwork YouTube page or channel, in which they've tried to sell off old Warhammer art pieces from various artists, and they've created a huge market for it. Actually, and it's really it's taking off. I think that kind of thing, orcs riding across a battlefield against demons or something, is something that the general public who are interested in art might not have seen anywhere else.
Certainly.
I mean, certainly there's the old illustrations of the Iliad and the various levels of hell and that kind of thing. But I think there's something more visceral about certainly the Realm of Chaos illustrations, in that there's all kinds of parts of the anatomy in full show, and various grotesque goings on, deformed demonic creatures and the like. So it's certainly something that mainstream artists probably would not consider as part of mainstream art.
Certainly. I missed the origin story, though. How did you get your hands on Realm of Chaos? How did you get interested in Warhammer specifically?
Well, so Warhammer specifically, I think I got my first edition of Warhammer probably back in the mid-90s. I don't recall which one came first, whether it was Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer, but I got both sort of around about the same time, maybe when I was about 10 or something like that. And I remember this old model shop called Southsea Models down near Portsmouth, and it had this great showcase or glass cabinet right in front of the door as you went in.
Oh yes,
and this cabinet was absolutely chock full of fantastically painted little miniatures from the Realms of Chaos. So they had all the demons and orcs and things, and that was what really set the old imagination off for the Realms of Chaos. And then I wouldn't actually get one of the Realms of Chaos books until probably 10 years later, maybe in the 2000s.
So you paid for it.
They were quite hard. They were quite hard to come by at the time. And without the internet in sort of the early 90s, you couldn't just happen across this in forums or on Facebook or anything
They
like that.
were in White Dwarf, though. I mean, you did get an opportunity to see them in White Dwarf.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. But back then, I didn't really have the money for rule books and things like that. It was just whatever I got given, essentially.
Interesting. So your origin story is about 8 to 10 years after my origin story, but very, very similar. I think the painted figure pull power, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Orc's Nest in central London, but one of the managers in the Orc's Nest paints miniatures and puts it in the window, just so there's always painted miniatures to kind of draw the attention of the outside, passerby. And that's certainly something which Games Workshop has done historically as well. I think they realised, probably from independent stores, that putting miniatures in the window was the fastest way to get in foot traffic. So it is incredibly powerful. Can we talk a little bit about old lead? Because this is also a fixation that we both have. And I have to commend you with regards to your deep dives into non-Citadel-based miniatures, which we did talk about initially. But can you talk a little bit about how important old lead is to you?
I think it's sort of a fundamental building block of my sort of mental makeup. I've collected miniatures for so long, and it's always there if I need it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm busy or doing something else or away working or what have you, I can always come back to it.
Certainly.
And that sort of stability or mental crutch, or however you phrase it, I guess, is really quite important. I think I don't think enough people have something to latch onto, something that they can sit down, relax, and physically do, not just sit in front of a screen and just scroll or send pixels at each other or what have you, but something physical that gets the mind working and the body working as well. I find really quite cathartic.
And painting is a central part to your hobby as well, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier. Painting is sort of almost a love-hate relationship for me. Sometimes I can blitz through 20 miniatures in a night, and have 20 models done within the week. Other times I find it difficult to even touch a paintbrush. Whereas the one thing that I can regularly do without really getting bored of it is building, sculpting, or just gluing miniatures together. I find sort of the the mechanical side of building miniatures really interesting, and the painting side probably more process driven.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So in terms of your moniker, let's talk about Nergal specifically. I mean, I have not quite the same depth of fondness for Nergal that you obviously have, but I have some fondness with regards to Nergal as something that one encounters in various times of day-to-day life, particularly with young children. You start to embrace the Nergal in your life with young children, let me just say. But in terms of Nergal, how did you get interested specifically in Nergal?
So I always like the aesthetic, the style, and it suits my painting style as well. In that I'm quite a fast and loose painter. I don't really hold much sway in doing anything particularly neatly. I guess that's how I can get quite a lot done in a short space of time when I really put my mind to it. I think probably it was the Nergal Renegades for 40k.
Beautiful miniatures.
Were my first actual Nergal miniatures. From there, I purchased the Death Guard. The next iteration of them, so the lead Death Guard, and then I sort of branched out into demons. So I've actually got one of each unique sculpt of the metal plague bearers.
Oh yes,
throughout the ages.
Oh yes, I used to have that too.
the three separate iterations of the 11 sculpts, plus then I sort of got into unreleased miniatures. So I ended up getting the 2 unreleased plague bearers, the unreleased Beast of Nergal, and the Great Unclean one as well. So I've got quite a fancy collection of Nergal miniatures.
We share an origin there as well, the Chaos Renegades in particular. You can't imagine what it's like being on the other end of the earth trying to get Citadel miniatures, but that was certainly my early experience. We pulled our money together, we went through the catalogue, and we all bought Chaos Renegades, and I think I probably still have one or two of those original Renegades somewhere in my general collection. But yeah, the Chaos Renegades, it's hard to really describe to, modern folks that are currently putting together plastic miniatures, what it was like to actually see those Chaos Renegades for the first time. And then when you actually physically got them, I'm not sure if you started by seeing it just in a magazine or in a catalogue, but actually getting them and staring at them and the multidimensionality, just rotating them and looking at them was just something of, I don't know, I can't even express words around it.
I think they're probably some of the nicest miniatures that Games Workshop or Citadel have ever created.
Certainly.
Because when you actually look at them, they're incredibly dynamic, despite the fact they're 2D.
Certainly.
They're all single cast, arms, legs, heads, the works, all together, and then simply a nice flat Chaos Renegade backpack stuck on the rear, and they're really quite something to behold when you get a few of them together. And some of the artists on the Old Hammer community are coming across these miniatures in their piles, and they are pushing out some incredible artwork on these little fellas.
Certainly. So, in terms of an origin specifically with regards to Nergal, how many years have you been a Nergal devotee?
Crikey, probably 20 plus of the 30 that I've been collecting. To be honest with you, I fell out of the hobby for a few years in the middle, having gone travelling for a couple of years, and then when I came back, I sort of revamped my collection into a more lead-based, away from sort of plastics and what have you, and it started really pushing the collector's sort of mentality rather than the mass plastic regiments mentality. So yeah, I would say probably 20 years maybe, something like that. Interesting stuff.
So let's get to the important, the meat and potatoes of the conversation. In addition to painting, you also write what is loosely called, and I don't want to use this in necessarily a negative light, but fan fiction. You've set up a Patreon, you're getting together. How do the Chaos Dwarves fit into your interests?
So, sort of loosely, I would say that I collect sort of every aspect of Chaos. So I've got a tremendous Chaos Dwarf army, a huge Chaos Demon army, which is at the moment, in painted terms, is predominantly Khorne and Nergal. But I do have various packs and piles of Tzeentch and Slaanesh. I've also got a collection of giants from various manufacturers.
Very nice.
A Beastman army and a Chaos Warrior army and a Chaos Thug army. So really, the Chaos Dwarfs are probably my most complete army. If that kind of makes sense. I know it's not, people don't usually complete armies, but in sort of a collector's sense, I'm quite happy with what I've managed to create out of it. And to that end, I wanted to create something that could, how you could say, document the army and its styling in a way that pays homage to the old Realms of Chaos books. And that's where sort of the idea for my book, Masters of Destruction, has come from. So, which, loosely speaking, it's a Realm of Chaos book that isn't a Realm of Chaos book, if you see what I mean. We all know that Games Workshop are really hot on protecting their IP, and that's something that I don't really want any part of having to defend in court. If anything that I create ever becomes particularly popular, so to that end, I've actually created my own world and my own history for the Chaos Dwarfs, or what I like to call them, the Dark Dwarfs. And they're sort of the nemesis, because each of the Realms of Chaos books there was a army or a pantheon versus an army and a pantheon. So it was Nergling Zinch and Khorne and Slanesh, or Khorne and Zinch and Nergling Slanesh. So I needed something to bounce off of the Dark Dwarfs, and in that respect, I'm actually going to create a small Dark Elf army, or as I call them, the Fallen, or Fallen Elves.
Interesting.
And there's a whole story that goes behind why they're fallen and why they hate the Dark Dwarfs. So
fascinating stuff. I mean, the history of Games Workshop is ultimately creating IP that is then potentially litigatable by the Tolkien family and various other folk. And it's one of the things that I missed out actually talking about with Jackson and Livingston was how scared, they really are. And I mean, obviously Age of Sigmar is a direct contribution to that idea, because they had to change the names of all the races and wanted to move into intellectual property that they could actually own. So I think there's a strange kind of counter problem that Games Workshop has historically had, which they now are enacting on their fan community, which is quite a curious, very chaotic actually, in terms of its kind of origins. But anyway, let's talk a little bit more about, I mean, certainly I come to this thing in some regard in terms of the history of Tolkien. And really, I think the First World War did more to Tolkien than anything else. But the history of, I mean, some of the Norse mythology, but really the quintessentially, I want to say the United Kingdom mythology, because it encompasses also Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. Can you talk a little bit about your understanding of the kind of dwarf origins and how you've perturbed that in your writing?
So I absolutely love Tolkien, and quite a lot of the ideas behind my armies go back to the sort of the mass battles of the Silmarillion and that kind of ilk. Hence the sort of the huge armies that I'm creating at the moment. I mean, for instance, my Chaos Dwarf army, having painted about half of it, has about 300 models in it. And that when you take a photo of 300 models, there's something incredibly epic about not only the fact that somebody sat there and painted 300 models, but also the fact that I think quantity has a quality all of its own.
Certainly.
And that's something that I really enjoy. And I like to bring in as many sort of fantasy tropes into my collecting as I can, not just Lord of the Rings or just Warhammer, but also Discworld and that kind of thing. So it's not just dwarfs from necessarily Warhammer that I would be necessarily ripping off of, but a wide variety of different ideas and tropes.
Only in the past week, I heard the story of Terry Pratchett getting involved with the Warhammer folk and the potential for Terry Pratchett actually writing for Warhammer fiction, which I thought was just the perfect, as you say, joining in some regard of these two things. But had you ever heard that story before?
I was not aware of that, but that sounds fascinating. I think that would be something really quite special.
The fellow whose last name is, maybe it's Jordan Sorcery, I think, did a discussion on that. So we're going to talk about YouTube in a minute, but his YouTube channel, I periodically peruse for these kind of nuggets of interesting, perturbation in my own thinking. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about YouTube, because you've mentioned it briefly, but the reason I know you is because you have an amazing YouTube channel that's covered a number of things which are very seminal in my own thinking and interest. Nigel Stillman, without question, needs to be eulogized to a greater extent. But in terms of YouTube as a phenomena, can you talk a little bit about how you've taken your particular hobby and converted it to YouTube?
I think that YouTube is a great format to spread the word of the hobby. As a medium, video and audio is a lot more engaging than just pictures on Facebook forums or dedicated forums. So in a way, it's a better way to get the message out there. And in that regard, you can also layer the amount of information that you're giving people. So you can show something on screen, and whilst you're doing whatever you're doing on the screen, you can then talk to the people that are watching it and almost sort of give them an insight into why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing it, the mentality behind it. And that's probably the thing that I enjoy the most about creating YouTube videos is you can get across a lot more information than necessarily just a picture or an article on a blog necessarily could.
And you've been able to gather a number of like-minded folk who are subscribers to your channel. Could you talk a little bit about just the length of time? How long have you been doing your channel for?
I think I've been on YouTube for about 6 or 7 years. And really, I'm not actually on YouTube to sort of create a following, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's just doing what I like to do. And if other people enjoy what I'm doing, then that's an absolute bonus. One of my favourite things to do on YouTube is actually talk about the collecting side of the hobby.
Certainly.
And going back to different manufacturers and how they are still creating miniatures in the style of the old Citadel ranges, which is one of my passions.
Many with the same sculptors and things like that. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Kev Adams is very prolific.
Certainly.
He's. I've got quite a few of his more recent sculpts, and there's loads of miniatures out there from Heartbreaker and Wargames Foundry and numerous others that are still in that old style, which is fantastic.
Do you have a copy of his bio?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have a copy of Kev Adams has recently published a biography with Wombat Publishing. I was wondering if you had that copy.
Oh yes, I've seen it, but I've not. I don't have a copy of it.
I found it sadly disappointing. It's a bit like
really?
a high school kid writing about their misadventures, but not letting themselves say anything naughty. Although he does talk about holding weapons and various other things associated with the punk movement. But I've always been like a single degree of separation away from Kev Adams. I'm a long-time fan of psychedelic art and these kind of things. I mean, Kev Adams is psychedelia uber alles, basically. And I've known people that have known him. They've worked with him at Games Workshop and various other things. And they've always told me these amazing Kev Adams psychedelic stories. And I was hoping in the book to actually get a series of these things written down. But unfortunately, they were playing possum with regards to this stuff. It's very straight-laced, unfortunately. And I have to just hold the stories I've been told to my chest when I think of Kev Adams' work.
You're hoping for some juicy anecdotes.
Well, the nature of people that have known him have been associated with, 6-day-long benders curled up on a couch, eventually kind of emerging and this kind of stuff. I mean, he really did live in the world of the goblins. Like, he actually... and that, I think,
personifies it.
Yeah, that is the beauty of Kev Adams' work, is that you're dealing with really strong psychedelic art with clearly a very strong kind of punchy element to it. And when I got it, I mean, it's difficult because I'm now friends with Mr. Wombat on Facebook too. And I've tried to tease him occasionally in the occasional Facebook comment. I'm probably going to approach him at some stage and just say, hey, look, look, I've reread it with the view that, okay, you're dealing with a high school kid who's telling that he hasn't done anything naughty in the past 30 years of his life. And, there are some interesting stories in there. But you're very much introduced to people that you already know about through a kind of, I don't know. The whole thing was just a bit disappointing, unfortunately. My hope is that there are a series of books actually coming out currently. I mean, obviously Jackson Livingston started it with regards to the Dice Men, which is how I got to meet them. But there seem to be a series of books coming out currently about the origins, more picking a particular point in kind of Games Workshop's Adele miniature history and then getting a small number of people together. Have you ever corresponded with Alan Merritt? Or have you met Alan Merritt?
I don't think I've met Alan Merritt, no.
Alan Merritt is just like the salt of the earth kind of person. I started communicating with him. He thought I was a lawyer, which is always a good start. I don't know what you are professionally, but I'm not a lawyer. And when I first started writing to him, he had the view that because I knew a lot about intellectual property rights, which I do just independently through my kind of day-to-day life, and also the history of lead rot, which obviously is a very real phenomenon. Should we talk about lead rot?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it forces you to paint the models, right?
It certainly does, yeah. And actually, part of my sort of passion for collecting miniatures is preserving them as well.
Certainly.
If you whack a load of paint on there and varnish it, then at least you're protecting what otherwise might melt away into nothing if you're particularly unlucky.
Dust. Yeah, it just becomes dust. Yeah, I still have a few very lead rot miniatures which I just hold identification. I'm never going to have them painted. They were already thoroughly rotten when I purchased them. I must purchase them just to demonstrate what lead rot was. But yeah, it really is a phenomenon. A lot of these models, because they weren't made in pewter, they really do have a life expectancy unless you slap some paint on them.
So I've got an old, I think it's a Grenadier Cloud Giant with the rather craggy nose and the long gangly arms and legs.
Certainly.
And he was in a poor state of repair when I received him, and I cleaned him up and I actually soaked him in poly cement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave him a lick of paint and a nice bath in quick shade varnish, which is my favourite like heavy duty polyurethane varnish.
Certainly.
To protect everything, and he's holding up quite nicely actually. I've had him painted for probably about 10 years now, and he's not showing any signs of disrepair yet. So
very good.
Yeah,
very good.
Fingers crossed. That's done the job.
So I don't know how we got down this rat hole, but it's just the nature of talking with me on a Saturday morning, rather. So let's explore a little bit more about the non-Citadel miniatures in your collection and how you actually go about. I mean, do you spend a lot of time on the internet perusing forums and stuff, finding the origins of these things and then sourcing them accordingly, or how do you find your miniatures?
Well, there's some great resources out there. I mean, North Star Figures, for instance.
Oh yes.
They've got just dozens and dozens of manufacturers in a list, and you can just scroll through. It's great fun. But really, I mean, Facebook is your friend if you're into old miniatures or getting something that could proxy as something else. The old Hammer community, it's certainly not just Citadel. There's people on there that collect Grenadier, Merleton, and all kinds of different old manufacturers, that some of which are still going.
Yes.
And you come across something in a post, you think, oh, blimey heck, where have I seen that before? Was that Viking Forge, or was that Mears or something else? And you can simply ask the question, and that's really just hours and hours of looking at other people's fantastic miniatures.
Did you ever get into self-casting, Prince August? And I actually got a few sculptors to make me some molds at some stage in my collecting history, probably more than 20 years ago now. Have you ever self-cast?
Well, yeah, so I haven't actually self-casted. However, I have created a giant Chaos battering ram that one of my friends, Curtis from Ramshackle Games, is casting up in resin of all
wonderful
things. But the outcome of it is quite nice, though. It's approximately the same size as the original Chaos battering ram, and it's just in resin and a lot lighter rather than this enormous 2-pound hunk of lead.
Yes. Yes.
Which I found really quite fun to do. So perhaps in the not too distant future, I'd like to sculpt my own range or something. I do like sculpting and seeing the results of my labour. So yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating stuff. Well, certainly, I'm sure you have so many media that you are currently the king of that you'll be able to promote that and get the information out to the community. Let's return to your Patreon. What are the short-term aims? What are the mid-term aims? What are the long-term aims with your Patreon?
So the short-term aim is to gather enough money together to hire artists that are eminently qualified to illustrate something as illustrious as a proxy Realm of Chaos book. So I've got a few irons in the fire with respect to the specific artists that I'm looking to hire. It's just I can't afford to create the book all on my own budget. That's the main reason for the Patreon, and really to get like-minded people involved as well. It's quite a good forum for bringing people together as well.
So in terms of your video output, I know you've been away. I know there have been a series of things which have stopped the videos for a period of time. Are the videos going to be restarting with some degree of volume?
Maybe not volume, perhaps more regularity.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just come back from Bring Out Your Lead,
mm-hmm.
where I played the gigantic game of Hell's Reach with about 20 other people, including John Blanche, which was rather fun. So I've been in a bit of a Necromunda kick most recently.
Interesting.
So I hope to be releasing a few videos in that vein over the coming weeks. Really, probably only 2 or 3 videos in that respect. And then I'd like to sort of get back into the building armies series that I guess I'm kind of famous for. I think I've got about 4 or 5 years worth of army builds on YouTube now.
Certainly.
So I'd like to get back into the swing of things and painting copious amounts of models and talking about my theories on the how, what, why, where, when of collecting these things.
Certainly. I mean, one of the fascinating things which really brought it home for me, associated with how important things like Bring Out Your Lead are, is the fact that you hadn't actually played a game for some ridiculous length of time until the last Bring Out Your Lead. Can you talk a little bit about finding, like, literally, this is the difficulty I find with regards to this hobby, is that I can't physically find people in my area who are as obsessed with this thing as I am. Could you talk a little bit about finding the others?
Yeah, absolutely. So I fell out of the sort of the playing side of games, of gaming or wargaming, quite a long time ago. I used to go to a club with my brother, and I always felt it was very sort of cliquey in that I wasn't part of the clique. So I would arrive with some miniatures, and I wouldn't really feel like I could approach anyone or anybody would want to play with me. And I felt that was really quite disappointing because as a war gamer, the clue's in the title, you want to game. And I sort of fell out of the love of actually playing these games for a long time, probably, 15 years.
Gosh. Okay.
And in that time, I sort of took the collecting side of the hobby, building, painting, modeling, etc., the miniatures and just building up my armies as the main part of the hobby. And then, of course, as you say, it wasn't until Bring Out Your Lead last year that I actually played a game for however many years it had been. And then in between then and most recently, I hadn't played again.
Yes.
I literally just played Hell's Reach 2022 and Hell's Reach 2023, and by all accounts, I expect it will be the same with next year. I just don't have anybody to play with. There doesn't seem to be a very big community near to where I live that are into this kind of thing.
That's my hope with Warhammer the Old World. I mean, like you, I'm amazingly optimistic with regards to this thing. In fact, I almost see it as an apology from Games Workshop for however many years it's been since Square Bases were on the covers of White Dwarf. But I didn't mean to. That I think is probably the only way that I can look at this thing. But my hope is in the area of Las Vegas that I live, there is just no one. If I go 17 miles, there's the closest local hobby store where, I probably could find other people. But my hope is that this thing will get a bunch of us out of hiding in the shadows and bring us back to put our models again on the table in hopefully game stores in a variety of different locations. But, this is, I think, this is a hope beyond a hope in terms of the possible practicalities of this thing. Are you viewing Warhammer the Old World as similar light? This might be an excuse for you to bring out your models and play with others. And I don't know how dire your circumstances are associated with locals in your community. Is there a local game store within 2 or 3 miles of where you live?
So the local Warhammer store is probably about 5 miles away.
Okay.
Although I wouldn't dare take any lead down there. Game store wise, I'm not familiar with any.
Okay.
Probably because I've not sought it out though. If I was to seek it out, I would imagine there will be something available.
So you don't think the Warhammer stores will be sympathetic to people bringing out their lead?
I don't know. Well, the thing is, my collections are so heavily infused with other manufacturers' models
yes.
that to field any sizable army or useful warband of anything, I'll probably have to pinch and steal from various other collections. So to actually field what I would like to field, I would have to find something other than a Games Workshop store to play in.
Interesting.
But from the flip side of the coin, though, as positive as we would like to be about it, I would hazard a guess that it's a cynical cash grab, and actually it's not so much an apology, but a opportunity for them to actually make a little bit more cash. Because and I noticed this over COVID, was that the old Hammer community went from something like 1,500 to something like 13 or 14,000
certainly
members on the Facebook page. And I can only assume that Games Workshop,
they should be paying attention,
in their infinite wisdom, noticed that a lot of old people with a lot of money
it's subtle.
Are very keen on this stuff called Old Hammer. So I would hazard a guess as to that being the main reason why we're getting this elusive old world return.
Yes, I hope that just the breadth of miniature knowledge is not represented in the store managers. I don't know whether I'll be pushing it myself, because certainly I could feel still relatively well-sized armies on Citadel alone. But, I don't know. I remain cautiously optimistic. I will allow reality to prove itself to me over the next few years as this thing becomes a real thing.
Well, we will see, won't we?
We most definitely will. So, okay, I can't even remember where we were. We were talking briefly about Patreon. Let's plug your Patreon one last time.
Okay, yeah. So, my Patreon's Nergling101. That's Nergling, Nergling, and basically it's harkening back to the old days of Warhammer, to the realm of chaos, and to try and instigate a bit more inspiration into the hobby, rather than this plastic junk that we get force fed by our glorious Games Workshop. And it's not just Citadel; it's a variety of manufacturers: Essex, Midlam, Mearse, Merleton, you name it, Grenadier.
Yes.
Just about all the good old stuff, predominantly in metal. Although I hazard a guess that there'll probably be a couple of plastics dotted here and there. Maybe some of those wretched goblins with the very pointy spears that you got in the army box. But yeah, it's all about inspiration and love for the old school.
I didn't realise that there was potential for you to put out miniatures. I mean, if you can weave those two things together, more media, more time, I think. That sounds like a wonderful possibility. Well, so if I can instigate that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, Nergling, it's been an absolute pleasure to have the chance to chat with you. You are one of the people that has continued to inspire me and continue to... I will one day get out a camera and start actually filming my armies. I bought the base extensions, so I'm certainly moving in the direction of actually fielding Warhammer Old World, Old Lead armies. But your stuff continues to be an inspiration. Obviously, I found you through YouTube, and then I thought, there's a like-minded soul out there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, Tom.
Pleasure chatting. Talk soon.
Take care now.